Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I am Pixie from Planet Pixie. I plan weddings and events with a difference. If you are watching live, please do comment along, say hello. If you're watching on the replay, #replay. Feel free to ask us any questions either as we go along or afterwards, and we will come back to you with any answers that we can. I'm joined this evening with Angela Maughan from Angela Maughan Ceremonies. Good evening.
Hello there. Thank you for inviting me along.
You're very welcome. So tell us about what you do.
As you just introduced me, I'm Angela Maughan Ceremonies. I am based in Longforgan near Dundee in Scotland. I am a ordained celebrant, so that means I can do legal weddings in Scotland. I also officiate funeral celebrations of life, as well as baby namings and vow renewals.
So what is the, well, first of all, how did you get into what you do?
Oh, how long have you got?
As long as you like.
My background's nursing. I had children, so I left nursing to be a stay-at-home mum. I really wanted something that would work alongside the children. So I trained to be a homeopath. And then 13 years ago, I moved to Scotland and continued working as a homeopath, went on to do other therapies, bioenergy healing and silent counselling, which I still work with, which are great for anxiety, anything to do with stress, emotional, mental health issues, as well as physical. But coming to Scotland, I met another homeopath who was an interfaith minister. I went through quite a difficult time because my marriage ended, and I did the 2-year course on my own personal growth and spiritual direction with her, and I was ordained probably about 7 years ago now. So doing the course was for me. I never went into the course to do ceremonies, and then a friend of mine asked me to officiate a cousin's funeral, and then a friend asked me very kindly to do her wedding, and it's just kind of snowballed from there, really.
Well, lovely way to start, though. Not obviously a bit of a rough story for yourself, but such an organic way of getting into doing what you do.
Really passionate about it. Still do the ministry side. You know, the group that I'm with which is the Open Sanctuary. We meet every morning at 8 o'clock, which is open to everybody. We have a Zoom room, so you can come in for our morning meditation. We do courses. We train other ministers, as well as doing a year's spiritual guidance course, really. But the ceremony side, I just really like people and working with people and telling their story.
And that's such a big part of any kind of celebration, isn't it? The whole point is there's a story.
Definitely. I mean, the ceremonies are absolutely nothing about me. I am just there as a storyteller for either the couple and their love story, or for the person who's passed, their story, and the family's story, and their values and beliefs as well.
Yeah, it's funny, you learn things about people that you know already when you go to things, don't you? And you hear the stories that are told about people.
Definitely. I mean, I always feel as if I've done a really good job if at a funeral ceremony people have said that was them. Did you know them? I knew this about them, but I didn't know that. And it's the same at a wedding. The couple's love story, their journey. I'm really interested when I meet couples to find out how they met. What first attracted them to each other, what keeps them together, hopes and dreams, for the future. And it's sharing that story.
Yeah, I think that's the whole point, isn't it? So it's such a shame when you go to an event and that's missed, because I think that's one of the most memorable parts.
Definitely. And this, the story doesn't have to be the warts and all story, because relationships, relationships are up and down. and that's part of the growth within that relationship as well. But it is about sharing the journey. And the couples, one side will know one part of the story, the other side, some friends will know another part, but not often do they know the whole story.
Yeah, it's about bringing it together, isn't it? So what's the process of working with you? How do you help people bring out those stories?
With the wedding couple, it is normal that they contact me. It's either the family on social media or through my webpage, which has just been relaunched, hopefully within the next 2 weeks, or venues. It's really good when people have found you through word of mouth, or they've seen you, at somebody's wedding, or at somebody's funeral, or at a vow renewal, and they come and contact me. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody, give them 20 minutes, half an hour, and answer any questions that they've got, because they've got to connect with the person who is officiating.
Yeah, every celebrant I've spoken to says the exact same thing there.
Definitely, because I will be in the photographs, and you want them to have that warm feeling about me in decades to come when they're looking at the photographs.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want to look back and be like, oh, do you remember them?
She was okay. Could have done a bit better. So it is about having that connection as well. Answer the questions. Sometimes they don't know what they want from the wedding or the ceremony, because it's, many of them haven't been married before. Some have, and some have actually married the same person again. So it's all different people who come. So I can walk them through and talk them through what sort of things that they do that they can have. And there's no right and there's no wrong here. And it's about them. So that's more or less an introductory meeting. If they wanted to go with me, then they would book. I secure the date. I don't take any more than one wedding ceremony a day. So I won't be rushing off somewhere else or clock watching. And then probably about 4 to 6 months before the wedding ceremony, we start that conversation. In the past, remember that time when you could go to cafes and restaurants and have coffee and cake?
Back in the day when you could actually see and touch people.
Definitely, yes. The good old days. So, normally I would have met them then. At the moment, it is this conversation, and technology is great because it's enabled us to continue the conversation. And then that is starting the process. Because I've been doing this for 5-6 years, I've got a lot of background information for them that I can email over and send them, which will give them ideas. But really that conversation starts about their love story, how I can tell it, how they would like that ceremony to be. Is the children involved? Is it going to be a blended family? Would they like, friends or relatives to come up and say something? Would they like help with writing their own vows, or would they like to have a look at some vows to give them some ideas, or just actually use vows that that have been used in the past?
How long would you, on average, how long would you say, like a wedding, for example, ceremony tends to take?
The ceremony itself is normally anything from on average 20 minutes to no longer than half an hour. Obviously, you can have them much shorter than that, because sometimes people just want, a marriage. They just want to be married. They just want to exchange the rings, exchange the vows, do the legal paperwork, and that's all they want. Sometimes other people will put 2 or 3 different rituals that we can talk about later within the ceremony. But I would say probably about 20 to 25 minutes is a good time. Your family and friends are thrilled to be there with you and want to share that experience. but start keeping anybody longer than 30 minutes and you start to lose them.
Yeah, you don't want to bore people.
Definitely not. That does no good for my reputation at all.
No, definitely not. So one of the things, like you've just mentioned, rituals, and obviously that I think that's probably one way that you can keep people's attention, and obviously sometimes get people involved. So obviously I know like some people, when they have hand fastings, they'll have other people, members of the family, come and lay the ribbons and things. What rituals do you find most popular? How do people go about deciding which ritual to have?
Probably deciding the rituals is done in those conversations. Like, as I said, that, we sit down together, and it's about co-creating the wedding ceremony. So it's about, the couple talking about, what they like. Are they a tactile, couple? Is the children to be involved, or parents and things? And it's about giving ideas. Really, sometimes people know exactly what it is that they want. They've seen somebody, have hand fasting or hand tying or a sand ceremony at another wedding, and that's what they would like. But they can have whatever they like. In Scotland, probably the most popular ones are hand fasting, and there is a difference between hand fasting and tying the knot.
Yes. Do you want to explain the difference between those?
I can. Hand fasting is when the hands are bound together, and it can just be for the ceremony. In the past, they would have been bound for a year, and that would have been done. I know.
Can you imagine? How did anybody put up with each other for that long time to each other?
And that was the test. If you could get through that year, then marriage was going to be really easy. And traditionally, hand in marriage and tying the knot came from the hand fasting, because only the rich had enough money, for rings. So the general population, had all bits of, material lying around, and they would make their own hand fasting braids. So hand fasting is normally where the hands are bound together, and they can be bound for the ceremony or for the day. Tying the knot is normally where the braids or the ribbons are placed and there is a knot formed, normally an infinity knot, as the ribbons or the braids pulled apart and the couple on tied together.
That
So
sounds more
very
practical,
basically,
if I'm honest.
yeah. But hand fasting and being tied together, you can still, exchange rings. You can still, exchange your vows. So things can still be done. And that's probably in Scotland is probably one of the most popular rituals, because it does have a very traditional Celtic background to it. Probably the more popular after that is drinking from the quake.
I'm sorry, I'm just reading this comment that has just come up. Having to use the bathroom in someone else for a year would definitely tell me I'm not getting married. Yeah, I think that would probably put me off as well.
Definitely, there are some things that are not up for sharing at all.
There's rules that have to be abided by.
Definitely. So drinking from the quake. So a quake is a two-handed love cup, which can be filled, traditionally in Scotland, it would be filled with whiskey.
Sounds good to me.
But
I'm in.
It has been filled with, champagne, Prosecco, a liqueur, or even, because there was children drinking from it as well, a fruit shoot.
Oh, I quite like a fruit shoot. I still stick to the whiskey, but I do like a fruit shoot.
Yeah, but there are other brands available as well.
Oh yes, of course.
So they tend to be the most popular, but I have done sand ceremonies, especially when there's children involved. They have their own coloured sands, and they can pour them into the vessel. And that's a lovely thing to be able to keep as well. There can be candle ceremonies where you've got the marriage candle, which is lit by 2 tapered candles from the couple, and then the individual candles are extinguished, and then you've got the marriage candle.
That's the sweet one. Well, they all are, aren't they, really? But
they all are. But what I would say is for the couple to have a connection, to really want to do it, and for it to be them. And even vows, use the language that you use to each other. Your own language, don't pretend to be something else.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't sound right.
No, it doesn't. I mean, I know we were going to discuss this a little bit later on, but it's actually one of the reasons that I wanted to speak to you specifically and discuss the difference between a celebrant in Scotland and a celebrant in England. Because I know my partner certainly has, he finds it so ridiculous that I actually had to go and find the written law, and prove to him that in England you have to say certain written words that were dictated by someone, whoever in history, and you literally get like a choice of 2 sets of words and you have to stick to them. He finds it absolutely ridiculous, and to be honest, I agree with him. But that's for the exact reason you've just said. It's not you. It's not about you as a couple and what it is that you're doing and what it means to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying and can understand. In Scotland, there are still celebrants that can't officiate a legal marriage. Mm-hmm. But in Scotland, there are people who are registered with the Registrar General that gives us the license to be able to legally marry a couple. So you can have a humanist, mm-hmm. some celebrants who have their own body, and then you have ministers, and obviously the registrars can legally marry as well. Mm-hmm. In relation to the words that are the sentiment, so the couple does have to be there out of their own free will. They do have to understand that they are getting married, and they do need to be announced as married. But there is a little bit more flexibility within that with how it can be said. But we do have guidelines here still from the Registrar General that those things do need to be covered.
Yeah, well, I mean, they seem quite, I don't know, logical is the best word I can come up with. Like, at the end of the day, the end point, the whole point of what you're doing is the same. So yes. to obviously be there of your own free will, and to understand that's what you're doing, and to have that announced, that's literally what you're there for. But I think how you get to that end point, that freedom and that flexibility, must give it that more personal touch.
Definitely, they end up being very meaningful.
Yeah.
And just to pick up on the word that you just said there, freedom. So in Scotland, I can officiate a wedding anywhere.
That's the other law that I think is bonkers personally here.
So we have got the most beautiful countryside. We have got the most romantic castles. We've got boutique hotels. We've got high-end hotels. We've got lochside. We've got beaches. You can be up in a mountain, in a valley, absolutely anywhere.
Rather than in a specific nominated building.
Yeah. And, even in the venues as well, there's multiple rooms. So depending on the size of the wedding party that you have, you can have the appropriate size room.
Yeah, rather than being restricted and you having to stick to certain rooms like we do here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So just popping back a quick second, what is your favourite ritual?
My favourite ritual probably is tying the knot. Just because, but there's very different ways that you can do it. You can lay individual ribbons.
Mm-hmm.
So the colours can tie in with the theme that you have, but also as well, colour has meaning. And going back to the therapies that I do, you know, we talk about the chakras and things like that as well. So, you know, red for your root, for that grounding, for your strength, blue for communication, gold for abundance. So you can bring in colours that are meaningful, and you can have several ribbons. And especially with blending families, it means the children from both sides can come in and can
Be
be involved
involved,
as
be
well.
part of it. That sounds like a lovely way to do it.
So I really do. I do like the tying of the knot. I do like the hand fastening as well, especially when the couple have invested some time and thought into the braid that they're going to use, whether they've plaited it themselves or whether they've created it. I mean, how nice would it be to have braids made out of maybe the clothes that you had when you first met each other?
It's lovely to bring in those extra bits of meaning, isn't it?
Yeah. Or if there's been, you know, a parent or a grandparent, you know, maybe it was on the paternal side, so you know you could incorporate, you know, your granddad's tie. So it can be very, very meaningful.
Yeah, and I've seen some lovely ways of like keeping and displaying those as well afterwards.
Definitely.
Some lovely ways to do it. So before I let you go, where can people find you? How can people follow you? How can people get in touch with you?
People can get in touch with me on Facebook, Angela Maughan Ceremonies. They can get in touch with me on Instagram, Angela Maughan. I do have Pinterest, I do have LinkedIn, and I do have a web page which will be, as I said earlier, up and running within the next 2 weeks. Email me at info@angelamorn.co.uk, or there's old-fashioned, pick up the telephone. My number's on my Facebook pages.
Phone
give me
somebody. It's a crazy idea.
Isn't it just?
Well, thank you very much. I'll just pop you backstage for just a moment. Thank you for watching. Again, if you are watching the replay, please do #replay. Feel free to ask us any questions and we will come back to you.